Hi, welcome to Studio 708. In this video we are going to create a skirt sloper, and from that pattern we're going to create a gathered wrap skirt. Let's create. First I'm going to draw the center front, center back line, and I'm going to put that in the middle of my paper so that I can work out either direction for this. For this sloper I want to create the whole pattern and not just half of it. So I'm going to go ahead and start in the middle and work my way out. So for my skirt length, from my center front waist or center back waist, I want to create a skirt that is 18 inches long. So this will be about mid-length, or excuse me, be about knee length for my skirt. So I'm going to go ahead and mark that location, and then I'm going to trace my foundation, hip foundation to this pattern. I'm going to go ahead and trace the hip level so that I know where that is, and then I'll square out from the bottom here. And then from the length level, I should be able to square up to my hip foundation. Okay, so now we just have a simple skirt block. For me, this is my minimal two-way stretch. Size 8. And right now this could be my front and or my back. So I'm going to go ahead and label this my center front / center back line, label my hip line, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and then we'll draft our other patterns from that. From here, we'll create our gathered wrap skirt. Okay, I'm going to use this section as my back pattern, but now I need to create two different front patterns. So this will be an asymmetrical pattern. One side will be the underlay of the wrap dress, which will be flat. The other side will be the overlay of the wrap skirt, which will be gathered. So I'm going to actually trace this pattern so that we can manipulate that one side. So let's go ahead and fold our paper and trace our pattern again. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this pattern out. Now we have a copy of our skirt. So this will be our front. Now we're going to manipulate this to have a skirt right front and a skirt left front. For the first one, we need to decide how high we want this to come up. So right now, we have 18 inches length right here, and we want it to cross over and have a little bit of an opening right here, but we don't want it to be too high. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's make this about 2 inches. So this is where we're going to want to cross through. So I'm going to use my hip curve for this, and I'm going to start at the side seam at my 0 point, go through my 2-inch mark, and then come on up to where this is. So this isn't a specific measurement, it's just kind of a nice curve here. I'm actually going to cut on this first line that we drew, and then I can go ahead and trace it to the other side so that I have 2 exact copies. Okay, now that we have this skirt pattern cut out, I've gone ahead and folded another piece of paper, and we're going to trace this pattern again. So I'm going to go ahead and fold both and trace it so we have a third copy basically. It'll be the second copy of our front. And we'll go ahead and cut this out. You'll notice that I only cut on the waistline and the side seam because this part is our asymmetrical part. So we want to create the other side of this. So if this is our left front skirt, we need to create our right front skirt. So I'm going to turn this over, and now we're going to trace our hemline. Okay, now we're going to cut out on this line. Now you should have two opposite copies of this skirt. So they'll overlap like that when they're sewn. And now we're going to take our right front, so right front when you're wearing it, and we're going to create this part so it has gathers right here, so it's a draped skirt. So we can go ahead and put away our left front. And I'm going to stick that with my back and get that out of the way for right now. Okay, now we need to think about where we want our gathers to be. I want my gathers to kind of look like they're coming from down here and being pulled up to this direction. So I'm going to mark on this side of my skirt, maybe about an inch, inch and a half down from my waistline. And then let's see, we'll give it maybe 3 inches below that, 3 inches below that, and 3 inches below that. Okay, then on this side, let's see if we think about it coming down here. I want to start maybe right here. And then we can go 3 inches. I think maybe we'll change that one to 4. And maybe 5 here. So I'm really kind of eyeballing this and thinking about how I want those gathers to go this way. So now I'm going to just draw straight lines, connecting the marks that I just made. I'm going to lower this one a little bit as well. Okay, so you can see how they're all going diagonally down to the bottom corner here. So now we're going to slash these lines, and then we'll take paper underneath them and get them spread apart to have our gathers. Okay, you'll notice that when I slash these, I tried to get as close as I can to this point over here so that I can spread these out and fill in the gaps. So if you cut them apart, no big deal. You can just put them back together and tape it back down. But if you can get as close as you can, then you won't have to worry about this side seam anymore. Okay, so we need 13 inches. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sections to divide that into. So 13 divided by 4 is 3.25, so 3 1/4 for every section. So we're going to Pull this over real quick and go ahead and draw our center line. And this is where where the center one goes right here. So I'm going to start us off kind of over on this side of the paper so that we have room for that skirt to go to that direction. So I'm going to line this up here. Go ahead and draw my grain line. And then start taping my skirt on. Looks kind of funny when it's all just loose like this, so get it laid down. Tape your first one on. And on this one I'm lining up our original fold line from our original draft. And I'm going to tape this one down a couple of places so it doesn't move. And then remember, we need to spread 3 1/4. So I'm going to put my ruler here and give us 3 1/4 between where this one is and where this one is. So make sure that you're laying it flat. And then I'm going to tape this one down. Okay, I'm going to do the same one on all the rest here, so I'll speed up the video so you don't have to watch all of it. Okay, now that we have our pattern all taped down, we just need to true up some lines and make sure they're nice and smooth instead of bumpy. So right now you can see that this one's, where it's been opened up and where our curves are, it's kind of wavy everywhere. So we need to get that curve straightened up, well, curved up, smoothed out, and then we need to get this to be one smooth curve here too. So I'm going to cut my pattern and turn this sideways so you can see a little better. Okay, so I'm just going to smooth in between these points. Okay, and our waistline won't change, so it's our original waistline that we had. And then this side, it's easier for me to curve this one this way, so I'm going to push it here. We really want to try to keep the integrity of the curve as much as we can. So I'm going to do this one first in pencil because this may take a couple of shots to eyeball this. But I'm going to go off of here and then just start smoothing. Okay, I think that looks pretty good, so I'll go ahead and ink that in so you can see it better. You can try to use your French curve or your hip curve, but to me it's easier just to try to eyeball that and smooth it out as I go. Okay, so our grain line on this pattern will remain true to this hemline. So this was our grain line that we drew on here before. I'm going to go ahead and draw it on top of the other pattern so you can see. So this will be our grain line here. And this will be our skirt, right skirt front. This is our minimal two-way, and it's a size 8. Okay, so you'll cut this one out. This one, well, you might want to add seam allowance to it first while we're here. So let's talk about the seam allowances and the hem lines that you need to add. So for your main skirt bodies, we'll add a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance to all the seams. Same thing for the back. And then on our hem allowance, we're going to add 1 inch. So on this piece, we're going to create a lining, which we already did right here. So in this piece, let's back up here. This piece, we're just going to cut 1. Okay, then we'll gather this in. And once you gather that in, then the back side of this pattern will actually be the lining for this. So all those gathers will fit into here. So what I would do for this so that I have some notches to work from is mark from where my gathers should start. So I'd have a notch right here. And then mark where my gathers should stop, which will be right here. So I just used the top of this panel and the bottom of that top one. So these notches right here would be where my gathers go to. This would be the lining piece for this skirt. So this would be my right front lining. And we would cut 1. This side is actually my left front. And I would cut 1. Okay, so really you're cutting 2 of this piece, but you only really need the notches on this side. That would be your right side. Okay, and then the back, we would cut it just as is. Okay, you'll need to add a 1/4 of an inch seam allowance for the side seams, for the waistline, for the other side seam. And on the piece that's the lining, you'll add your 1/4 inch seam allowance at the bottom. This piece gets 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way around. On your left front, you'll have 1/4 inch seam allowance on the side seam, the waistline, the other side seam, and then you need to add an inch seam allowance down here. And remember, whenever something folds up on the curve, you need to fold it on that and make sure that you get that line, get it folded up where it shows here and here. The back will be the same thing, but the back will be a lot easier. So you'll have 1/4 inch seam allowance, 1/4 inch seam allowance, 1/4 inch seam allowance, and an inch hem line. Okay, and that's basically all there is to this skirt. So I think you guys should be able to knock this one out pretty fast. If you have questions, let me know.